Hello again to all the fine folks tuning in whenever, wherever, and however they're doing so. My name is Sean Talley. I'm a member of the Paper Street Pictures production team. I want to welcome you back to this podcast recap installment for episode 3 of the sci-fi original series Revival. We are back at it discussing this third installment, Reality Check. And again, if you are checking this podcast out, a lot of checks, that'll come up more in this episode. But if you're checking this podcast out, may it be after and only after you have seen episodes 1, 2, and 3, ideally, of Revival. Joining me for hosting duties, actor, comedian, Chicagoan, and cat lady, as we've learned. Maybe she'll give us another tidbit this time around. She is Liz MacArthur. Hello, Liz.
Hello. Hi, I'm Liz MacArthur. And in middle school, I used to play the trombone. That's it. No questions.
Not the instrument I would have assumed, but yeah, no questions. Yes, thank you, Liz, for joining us. Thank you so much for tuning into this program presented by, hosted on the Paper Street Pictures Podcast Network feed, among other places. We are joined once again by the co-creators, showrunners, and executive producers. Welcome back, Mr. Aaron B. Koontz and Mr. Luke Boyce.
Hello.
Yo.
I played the baritone.
Oh, we were next to each other.
We were right next to each other.
Yeah.
I played nothing. I think I did the recorder. They made you do the recorder when you were in school.
Yeah,
and then I was really bad and I refused to do it. And I think I failed. It was like my first ever not passing grade. I think it was recorder.
Playing the recorder. I felt like there's no rules with the recorder.
Yeah.
That's what they're still starting kids on that. My son's on the recorder this year and he gets to pick an instrument next year. Yeah, I think that's where you all fall off. Aaron was a kid at the concert that just didn't actually do it. Well, the whole group's doing it. He's like, yeah, everybody else will do it.
Oh my God. I did that in band camp. I couldn't keep up. I pretended.
One less recorder is probably a good thing.
Yeah.
We have recorders.
I don't know where to go from there, so we're just going to dive into episode 3. I usually have a segue somehow, but this one written by Noel Carbone, again called Reality Check. With this one, we open on Dana still grilling Kay about Em, which crosscuts with a flashback of Em and Kay entering the Check House, a family we will get to know here in this episode. We're introduced to several members of them. And within seconds of walking upstairs to use the bathroom, we got a klepto Em. She grabs the aforementioned big old bag of pills we've talked about, which prompts Big Bad Andrew Check to chase her out of the house and even shoot a rifle at them as they're running off. Dana here once again with a line about, she would never steal from a drug dealer, which Kay rightly calls her out now, which is something that's become apparent to us all. It sounds like you don't know your sister, lady. I do want to ask, Melanie had an Instagram post this week that actually showed that location, the house, and it's rather out there decor. Is there anything you guys can tell us about that kind of kitschy, wacky home?
Oh, man.
It came that way. I mean, like it was that was what was so crazy. Like we were looking for a weird kitschy home and then we thought about like, what would we do or how would we paint it or do different stuff. And that is exactly how the home was. We did not change a single thing except for
we hung chicken pictures on the wall.
Yeah, we did add chicken. We had chicken pictures. And then in the other room, there might have been a sex swing hanging. There was like that swing like that.
If you think there's a sex swing, it's a sex swing.
Yeah,
there's no other reason.
That's probably what that was.
So that was removed, and we didn't really go over that side too much. But yeah, no, it was as is. It was completely crazy and a very, very weird place to shoot. But the family was super into the show and so gracious because we spent a lot of time there. And yeah, it came exactly as is. Totally wild.
How did you find it? Did you put "We need a weird house" or?
No, it was door-to-door knocking.
Oh.
They were door-to-door knocking and found it.
I was going to ask the same thing because you guys said there's not a lot of infrastructure and like film registry and location type stuff there. So I was curious how you found it as well.
So fun fact, that house and Dana's house and Mrs. Shaw's house and Blaine's compound, they're all in the same walking distance of each other. Walking distance, literally even closer than that. They're just on the same street. So yeah, we found this amazing location with tons of locations and it was right there tucked away.
Yeah, you'll see Blaine's location in episode 4. And that once we found that, which was a big place that we were going to go, and it's a big junkyard, not spoilers, whatever, you'll see. And we were like, okay, this is a place we're going to need to kind of camp. It was a little bit of a hike to get out there. So that's where you're like, okay, now we need to find homes that work. So you then go down the street and you're like, okay, if any of these homes can work, that could be any of these places, it'd be really, really amazing. And yeah, it also ended up working down the road for Maytow. There's the thing with Maytow. There's other locations that actually fit right on that street. So it was a pretty
Wayne's house. Yeah.
Yeah, Wayne's house as well. Yep.
Cool. I have an additional question about the chicken lady. Was that stuff in the comics or the chicken paint? I just feel like chicken paintings is very specific. Was that drawn from a real life experience with a lady who paints chickens? or just
Yeah. Okay. So in Florida, like flea markets are a big thing. And one of the ways that you could buy some drugs in a couple flea markets in Florida was to buy art from a particular place. The rumor was that you could get drugs, right, through them. You can get some pot. So that was like, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, and when that was the case. And then but specifically chicken art is everywhere. Like there's a ton of artists who paint chickens with like a Jesus next to it and like all this. And I don't know what it is. I always found it so funny. I own like OG chicken art from a flea market in like the early 2000s. Like I have a painting somewhere in a storage unit that I was like, this is wild. And
do you still have the pot that came with it?
No, that wasn't. But I mean, okay. that would have made up for why I bought this thing. But I mean, it was a thing. It was always just like a funny anecdote that just seemed like an interesting, how do we kind of infuse within the world that Tim had built? It just felt very. I like that you were wondering if it was in the comic because it feels like something that would be in the comic. So we're just trying to kind of infuse more of that. But no, it's very real. It's a thing. Shawn could probably attest. You go to a flea market in Florida and there's paintings of chickens. A ton of them. They also make a lot of candles with chickens. That was another thing they do too. I don't know why, but I think it's a lot of, for one reason or another, it's very in like Mexican culture. There's a lot of chicken art. So I think that's part of it too. That's there in Florida. So yeah, it's a thing.
It honestly came out of Aaron and I talking about how much we both love flea markets. We wanted to include a flea market and we ended up not getting to because of just schedule constraints with locations and stuff. We found a flea market in where we were shooting that was great. And we started talking to people and we were handing out stuff, but it just didn't work out scheduling wise. But it was originally supposed to be in a flea market. And then that's when Aaron started telling me about the chicken art and about the drugs and stuff like that. And I was like, we have to do this? Like, this is phenomenal. Because in the comic, Dorothy Check is kind of the same. Like, she's this very offbeat character, and I loved her in the comic, and we really wanted to include her because it's just this crazy pink-haired lady with these three gruff criminal sons that are having breakfast in the comic, and we wanted to have some sort of version of that.
It's perfect. It's just so weird. I was like, there has to be more to this chicken lady.
Well, in the writer's room, we would talk about this. Like, I would schedule time at the beginning to just tell weird stories. Like, so what are odd anecdotal things that have happened or you experienced, or you went to this restaurant and someone did this, or you saw this thing. And we would try to, I think, taking those real life experiences that really help inform and make a story feel more lived in and unique. And so we're always trying to draw from that. And I always tell people, just random people that I'll interact with in my life, they'll tell me some story like, oh my God, this happened one time. Like I have a friend who told me a story. He had like a wooden leg and a dog came by and peed on his wooden leg. And then like the whole leg itself started to kind of crack. And I was like, this is just so odd and funny. And I'm like, that's going to end up in something I'm going to do. And then the leg smelled because like he kind of got into the wood. And I'm like, this is so weird and odd that I was like, this is a thing that I want to use. And it hasn't made it into Revival yet. Who knows? We'll see if it happens in season 2. But it's things like that. You just hear these odd stories and I'm like, okay, by the way, you told me that this might end up in something I write one day. So you need to be aware.
Thanks. You come with a warning sticker.
Yeah, completely.
Next, we find Dana in the station researching the Check family and having a conversation with Deputy Gunderson, wherein Dana suggests that the reason the family may have been so quiet since the lockdown is because older brother Anthony/Tony, as we'll hear him referred to as both, is stuck outside of town due to the quarantine containment order that Wausau is currently under. She also suggests a possibility that Tony's staying away/in hiding because he may be the one that killed somebody on that fateful night/Revival Day Eve. And eagle-eyed viewers will notice their first visual glimpse of a man who they may or may not have seen wrestle Bryan Danielson in a 30-minute Broadway at their local armory in the early 2000s. You will also hear said wrestling superstar later on orally. But yes, first shot of Phil Brooks, aka CM Punk, in the photos there. Cooper, now at school, is comforting the young girl Jordan, who came back on Revival Day. We saw her in the pilot. Ends up swinging a locker at a bully who was planning to stab her to see if she would heal quickly, as rumors have spread in the month and change since of their healing factor, which we get to see up close later. Dana at the Check house asking questions to Mama Check, who essentially does confirm that Em did steal from them. And Andrew, aka most likely to die in prison, confronts Dana here and tells her, back off my family or there's gonna be one more dead Cypress, which of course sends Melanie's mind thinking how much they might be involved in her sister's fateful night there. So,
and that's the part where he hands her a hack slash comic.
Indeed.
Which just felt like fun for me to see. Was there any other reason to include that other than just for me to be like...
I mean, part of it is clearance. It's easy to be clear.
Yeah.
But also, because it's wonderful and we love it. We're all fans. And yes, we wanted to include it. It's the Timverse. It's the Seeleyverse.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it fits the story, though, right? Yeah. Like about kind of what Cassie Hack's journey is and what's there. And it fits a little of the story of revenge for the family. And it's memorable, which I think will play in the future.
Yep.
Yeah. Despite Dana's pleading, Cooper is going to be suspended for hitting the bully. And we hear here that her parents were called an hour ago but have not shown up. So Dana decides, as the local officer to do so, brings young Jordan to her home where we meet the girl's parents who are not feeling this newly undead child of theirs, with the dad saying insane things like, that's not our daughter up there and she came back wrong. And this is a great moment here where Dana just hits them back with not just logic, but grace and empathy. And, with a line including like, she's worth loving. I hope you can find your way to do that. How important was that moment for you guys, for Dana?
Oh, vital. I mean, first of all, just Noelle's ability to write scenes like this is one of the reasons that we absolutely had to have her. She's able to just really make these beautiful scenes. And yeah, it's, unfortunately, this happens. I've seen stories about parents who, something happens and the religiosity tends to trump certain, familial responsibilities. And we wanted to kind of dig into that. I mean, a lot of this is really a glimpse at how the people of Wausau are dealing with this idea of the dead coming back to life. We don't really go into the individual people's lives as much. This is one of those moments that we're really able to do it. And so I think that's part of what makes this scene special.
Yeah, it was a vital moment to kind of show, you want to see the different reactions to the town of what it's like for people to come back from the dead. And I think there's this initial inclination that everyone is, oh my God, I get to have this beloved person back. But when you are dealing with fear and religion and all these other like ideas that kind of permeate your being and like dictate what you want to do in life, it can start to make you think, well, no, God chose her to die and she came back. This is wrong. There's something off. And someone put something in their head that this is a bad thing. There's going to be those folks that look at it that way. And so we wanted to show, those different perspectives. But then also, I think it was a great way to give you insight into Dana's character. Mm-hmm. Right? Like some of the best character moments are not, this person talking about themselves. It's how they're reacting to other people's fear, other people's issues. And so Dana's empathy, Dana's sympathy, is really great there. And I think it's a nice setup too for the way that she talks about loving their daughter and that, Jordan is someone you should love. And then when you get to the end and you see Dana hugging Cooper in bed, it's a nice setup and payoff for that. Right. Mm-hmm. And you kind of feel she's glad that Cooper's okay. She's going to go through in this episode a journey of where she's scared. That moment with the comic, what is he saying? He's like, give it to your son, Cooper, right? He's threatening her son. So now not only could something have happened to her sister, now her family is being threatened via a hack/comic and you're feeling that ire. And so, you know what I mean? Like there's something about like, what does that make you think about? Okay, what if I lost my son and how would I feel? And now here's these people who lost their daughter and they're not grateful. It's like, it sounds like you're lucky. It sounds like you should be grateful. So it's an interesting to give you the insights of your main character. And so we're always looking for those opportunities. I thought it was a great illustration of how to do that.
No, agreed. Like a very good character moment for her, indeed. You mentioned her embracing Cooper in bed. Before she does so, she leaves Em a voice message, and it seems very clear this is not the first one she's done. She's still trying. But we find Ibrahim deep into researching and analyzing everything from the local flora to soil samples to the town water. And the toxicology report comes in, which prompts him to go to the police station and ask for an escort to go to the Dittman house and investigate further. Wayne is the only one able to assist him. We have another fun moment with the secretary, who again And I love, that's the Fargo of it all, the Twin Peaks of it all, when you make all the little secondary characters feel so lived in the world and the way they all interact and bounce off each other. But we're now at the Dittman house, and Ibrahim asked to see the bathroom while Wayne distracts the husband. He follows a nasty scent to a room where he sees shackles and binds on a bed. We cut from that for a moment to find Em waking up at Rhodey's place. Rhodey says he does not sleep much because, quote, the darkness weirds me out. It's kind of like I'm reliving my death. They then have a conversation about how they died. Rhodey's story is not all that rock and roll, it turns out, just an infection. They make light of that, though. And when the question turns to Em, she gets cagey, but she does begin to reveal some tidbits about her fall. She realizes she neither jumped nor fell, or slipped and fell. But Rhodey offers to kind of help her find some answers, and she opens her journal, which gives us a few visual glimpses of what her POV might have been on that night, just from some of her drawings. We now find ourselves at a funeral for Bob's wife, Terry Dittman. Before we even jump into this very big scene, was the Dittman's prize horse being named Sebastian a nod to Little Sebastian on Parks and Rec, or is that just a happy coincidence?
Yes.
Aaron was nodding before I finished the question, so I had a feeling, yeah.
Was it really?
Yes,
yeah, of course. You don't just name a horse Sebastian.
Yeah, I mean, well, honestly, I think it happened inadvertently at first, and then because I'm not big on naming conventions, right? I'm like just what comes to my mind, pop it in, and what's there. And I remember doing a pass on the script when we were talking about that moment, and Sebastian. Then I think later it was like, oh, this is Little Sebastian. Like that's clearly what's happening.
Like most people, 4 horses come to Aaron's mind: Ed, Secretariat, Warhorse, and Sebastian.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I can't.
Sorry, that was off the top of my head. I feel like
I can't name a fifth.
Foremost people.
Who has a fifth horse?
Upset, because that's the whole way the word upset became a meaning for underdog.
Yeah,
that's some weird trivia tidbit that I think Jeopardy stuck in my head over the years.
Well, and again, this is another setup and payoff of like Horse People Are So Weird from Miles Miller, and what's there, and then seeing Mr. Dittman, and I like that he's like Dr. Ramen, and just like instead of Ramin, like he's just immediately being racist and just immediately being this like piece of shit guy. Because one of the things that's important is this setup of the story. We still have things that we need to answer right here in this, and I think if people are paying attention, this episode does give you a nice wrap of what actually happened with the horse, why Arlene, what happened with her, and why she's different, or at least one of the theories as to why she's different, without jumping ahead of that scene. So there's a lot of information that's being trickled in here throughout this, which is great. And then you see the flashes that like, wait a second, Arlene she was chained to a bed. Like some pretty awful shit was happening to this woman in this house. So you're starting to crack at this like zombie-esque mindless killer version of Arlene to understand something that might be a little different, and that maybe the real horrors is the racist mean dude, that's at this house, Mr. Dittman. So it's fun to start to layer that in, but then separate from that, getting into the scene with Rhodey and Em. I mean, I think that's just a really, really wonderful scene. I remember in the writer's room, we were talking about all the ways that like Rhodey could have died and what was there. And I've seen Katie is obsessed with avocados, my partner Katie, but she's with a knife. She'll do these like motions with a knife. And I'm like, she'll like open something and go like, bring the knife toward her. I'm like, no, you can't move the knife this way. And so, I always think about like what that could happen, coring an avocado, whatever that could be. And like, what is the dumbest way for this super cool dude to die, And because I think that humanizes someone. Like if someone's just too cool or all these things, it doesn't, they don't feel real, and what that is. And Noel just wrote that really great scene of like the fake out of like what he did, how he died and he wishes he did. And then to transition that, like, quick, tell me how you died. And then the tone immediately turns. And then we're back into very serious territory with the heart of the show, which is someone trying to figure out what happened to them. And what's there. And I think, I like the way that Amanda directed the scene. I like the way that this was kind of structured, because when you really think about Em, so much of her life has been so many people telling her what she can and can't do and controlling her. And then for the first time, you have someone giving her agency, who's like, oh, okay, it's cool, and like, maybe I did jump. And he's like, hey, if you did, there's reasons. It's okay. Like, I'm here for you. Like, we don't have to do this if you don't want to. Like all these things, he's continuing to give her space place in a way that she just hasn't had in her life. And that is going to be the above and beyond like band dude, pretty guy. It's going to be, that's what's going to be most attractive to her, is someone that is making her feel seen and giving her agency and giving her back her own agency, right? That's hers. That's like, hey, you know, and it even starts like at the very first time you meet Rhodey, he's like, yeah, you do you, you know, like, and he's like, hey, it's cool, you know, whatever. Like it's all immediately, I'm not here to impose on you. And I really like that dynamic. And I think you start to fall in love with Rhodey. Like, I just think he's like a really, really special character, and seeing the way. And that's just Kaleb. That's just how Kaleb is in real life, too. He's legitimately one of the sweetest people I've ever met in my entire life.
Yeah. No, indeed. He backs off. Then he does it later. You know, she talks about her dream of maybe doing the beach. And he's like, no, if that's your thing, that's your thing. Like he's consistent in that way for sure in this episode. Mr. Dittman is given a eulogy, somewhat inappropriate, maybe, referencing their bedroom life. When in walks Arlene herself, screaming, which spooks Wayne Cypress, who's in the back of the pews, and he calls quickly for everyone to exit the church. This all becomes like a big, crazy sequence of things in a row. She walks right up to Bob Dittman, who's holding a cross at her at this point, and makes quick work of him, just killing him in a near instant. Wayne opens fire, doesn't stop her at all. Arlene literally jumps into the coffin with Terry's corpse, at which point Blaine walks in and right past Wayne, who he pleads to stop as well. Blaine, again, offers an ominous eulogy of his own here, lights them both on fire, and watch them burn as one in a coffin. And wow, a lot of stuff.
That's insane. How a lot was happening all at once. How complicated was that, not to just film, but in the writer's room, just to incorporate such a rapid fire sequence in such a short amount of time?
Oh, I mean, well, I will say that the sequence kind of originated. That was one of the comic touchstones that we wanted to include. There was a couple with Arlene that we loved. One was the maternity ward with the baby, just a great scene in the comic. And then when she goes to Terry's funeral in the comic, we really wanted to do that. And, you know, we had a much broader storyline with what Arlene was doing originally that got really pared down, you know, again, constraints, and this is what happens. But, you know, just her trying to, the idea being that her head was chopped off. And then as it's regrowing, the memories of her daughter are starting to come back to her. And she's trying to locate her daughter. And then she finally finds her at the funeral and goes to her. And it's all, you know, part of this process of, in this episode, contextualizing Arlene and understanding, like Aaron said, why she was different. And then, you know, knowing that this rage caused an accident that she's now trying to understand and is regretting, and, you know, doing so under this mental duress. So yeah, it was a big scene to do and definitely to shoot. Was I there for, I don't think I was, you were there for that one, right?
Yeah. I don't think you were. Like, I think this was because I remember in order to get us to have a church, we had, it was the hardest time to find a church that would allow us to film there. And then we have another sequence later with another church. And like, thankfully, there were two women who were kind of the stewards of this church that were extremely kind. And I remember we were shooting really, really late into the night, and I was writing for the future stuff that was coming in. Like Samir, who's the next block director, had come in, and we had a big meeting, and I'm like working on script stuff to kind of make things work. And then they came in and saw me working really late, and we had this like good conversation. I was talking about my mom, and I grew up at the church and different stuff, and had like a really nice moment. And then actually that led to, at the end of the season, there's another big church that we're trying to find, and we couldn't. But then this church said, oh, I met with that showrunner, and we shared cake, and his mom was a Christian, and all this stuff, and like he's a good kid, and you should help him. And then that allowed us to get the next church that we got, which was really great in that night and what was there. But it was definitely a big set piece. There was a lot there, trying to figure out how to frame things and, you know, to make that work. You know, just beautiful shots of like Arlene framed with like the light coming in. There's some great images, you know, from the episode Justin and Amanda had kind of like blocked, and were really, really beautiful. And yeah, I mean, it was a good bit kind of coming in. You know, the thing that disappointed me the most is I wanted a bigger kill with Mr. Dittman that we couldn't do, you know, that was there on the day, because there's just so much happening. I wanted to feel that, because he is what has led to this, what Arlene becoming who she is. I mean, he murdered her. You know, that's what you're going to find out here, right? That like he was poisoning his mother-in-law because she had dementia. She's staying there and she goes crazy. And through this, and that's triggering her psychosis and then coming back from the dead, and they're putting her in the barn because they can't control her. And then what's the one way she can lash out at the person who's been awful? Kill his prized horse. Because she knew how much he loved that prize horse. So she goes, so like it's a lot of stuff quick. There's a lot of stuff there, and getting into what Ibrahim's saying with the governor here in the upcoming scene. But it was a lot to kind of put together, but was fun. And then it ends in this: Arlene's not coming in there to kill people. She's not coming in there to hurt anyone. Bob gets in her way, calls her a double woman. Get the hell out of my way, Bob. Right? Wayne's shooting her. She's not going after that. She's going to her daughter, and then to just crawl into a casket and cradle her, weeping while being set on fire is just like pretty. It's a haunting juxtaposition in what's there. And I think what's pivotal out of that is Wayne, who's the protector of the people, was not able to protect them from Arlene, but Blaine, who's amassing this following, who's the kids who are going to go stab Jordan with a pencil. If you listen, they're talking about on the radio program. Well, that's alluding to Blaine, which we're going to get into his radio program and what it is he's doing. Blaine is who's kind of soaking these seeds of dissent, resentment, and fear in this town. And now he's the one who is going to halt Arlene's progress. He's the one who finally stops her. And I think that's I know that's going to play into Blaine's character and his arc and what that's going to lead to from there. But that's a big moment where Wayne can't do something and Blaine does.
Certainly. We actually find Wayne back at the station. The mayor is there, obviously super concerned about this, and we learn that even being burnt to a crisp and singed to another human might not ultimately end a reviver. They actually enter a private room, now joined by Dana, and talk about how the charges to Blaine probably will not stick. When in comes the governor, as teased in the last bit of episode 2, Wayne and the mayor begin to plead their case to the governor on methods to contain, to control the local mob, the public outcry. Then in walks Ibrahim, actually, who has a real theory that, as we've discussed, Dittman poisoning Terry with mercuric chloride, which may have triggered the violent response, and posits here that the revivers are not inherently violent otherwise, which again has been his research from Revival Day forward. Wayne, however, is not having it. He mentions all the ways they've tried to kill Arlene, and she's still kicking. He even says, "That sound like a person to you?" Ibrahim, with another very poignant comeback to him, name one time in human history, quote, where camps have been better instead of horrifically worse. Again, not at all relevant to modern times. The governor here suggests Wayne has a tracking problem first. If they can figure out who is a reviver, tag him, mark him. Again, a line that is very funny here that I laughed out loud at. Works during Shark Week, and it'll work here.
One of my favorites.
Yeah, I'm very proud of that line. That was Noel wrote an amazing script and I came through, did a pass, and I'm gonna add Shark Week in there. Anybody that knows me probably expects that. I used to be obsessed with Shark Week. I used to watch it every year, and I think it's immediately what I thought of when I was like, tag them and track them, and I was like, oh, that's what they do with the sharks, and then so that's immediately where I went. I'm glad people enjoyed that. Yeah, that's a really fun scene. I like the quirkiness of it while serious things are happening, and these are big dominoes in the show that are starting to fall here, right? So Wayne makes a phone call. Nella inspires him at the bar, right? In that episode, and then Wayne makes a phone call, like, hey, we got a problem here, we got to figure this out. And then episode 2, and then that problem escalates. And they find Arlene, but then she's in the hospital. She's throwing nurses through walls. She's going crazy, killing cops. All this stuff's happening, and then ends up at a funeral. There's a fire. Like, it's just, there's some chaos going on in Wausau here, and in a quarantine state. And so that prompts her to come in. And now they're going to start like, hey, so let's track them, whatever this is, and then let's look at the viability of camps is becoming very, very real. Because if they can't control this, how are they going to come up with other methods? And that is something being set in motion by Wayne, and you can kind of feel the escalation of the town, right? These sects that are kind of forming, right? You've got the Borchards who are like, I don't know what I think. You've got Ibrahim who's like, hey, they're not inherently violent. Like, look, Arlene's a one-off. Here's why. I have evidence of this. But then are we able to look at the evidence? Are we, as a society, are you able to look at that and look at the nuance and the gray? Or are you just like, no, you cut her head off. We burn her. She killed people. Like, there's no other, that's just bad. That's just evil. So then do you now associate everyone to be like this Arlene? And it starts to really, you can feel the town being pulled at the center and tugged apart with what's going on there. So there's some big moves on the chessboard here that are happening in episode 3.
You guys had mentioned last week the mayor in Jaws is kind of a authority figure that you can point to in a few ways. All of these folks have a leadership position and all have their own. I think all of us in a leadership position too would have some variation of what the mayor would do. It's a self-preservation, you know, what's the easiest way to tamper down fear? What's the easiest way to do this X, Y, and Z? Ibrahim, of course, not having it says the word internment camp, which the governor ends that scene with saying, I wouldn't use that term. Because again,
Exactly.
decorum above everything a lot of times with these folks,
Yeah.
but it is.
And she's
it
always
is what it
gosh
is.
darn. She's
Yeah.
gosh darn.
Well, that's the
you know,
thing.
stuff like that.
Her all shucksiness makes it even kind of more menacing, you know, when a character is a little bit disarming initially like that, would still do such a thing.
There was a Sarah Palin comparison there a little bit that we were playing with for sure.
I forgot about
Yeah,
that.
I mean, it's one of my favorite shots. Yeah, one of my favorite shots in the show is the end of that scene where they leave and we just see Wayne sitting alone, you know, at this table with the American flag behind him. Not so subtle, but this is also, we wrote this before a lot of certain things happened. So there wasn't a strong intention to it, but it's just so poignant and yeah, it's powerful and sad.
We find Dana asking Nella at the bar about the sequence of events with Em, where Nella does mention that she left with a punk, not the CM or Shitty Dude variety, the like a punk musician, she clarifies. Dana recalls the note Em left on the band's flyer, so putting some pieces together here. We do cut to Em showing up at that concert where Rhodey spots her pretty quickly. She tells him she's never been to anything like a club, like a rave, anything like this, a concert. She is also spotted rather quickly by the two Czech boys up in the balcony, Andrew and his brother Adam. Rhodey, now on stage speaking some stuff that would make Blaine and a teenage Romy Weltman proud.
Was that the opening piece where he's just like scatting, where Rhodey's just vibing? Was that an existing song? Did Noelle or one of the writers come up with that? Or C, what I want it to be is, was that from one of your childhood diaries as a child?
First of all, we don't talk about my childhood diaries here. Yeah. So, although we do, because it's all over the show. Basically, anything where there's like father shit, that's my childhood diary. So, or more my teenage diary, to be clear. But either way, Shawn knows plenty about that. No, so this was actually our music supervisors, which were the Wilders, Jody and Asha, are who put that together. They hired, he's actually the guy who wrote that is in some band, I can't remember which band it is. He wrote this song for us and it was there, but then Rhodey performed all of it. So that's like really him performing. You know, we didn't know if he was going to lip sync or not. He did some on the day, but then when we got in there, we're like, you know, he can do it. And he showed me, he actually sent a video of me shirtless in his own basement, like doing the whole thing. And I was like, Caleb, this is rad. Like, he's like, I got it down. I could do it all, you know, and doing the scream and the whole thing and all that. I mean, it's not like our favorite song, but it fit the vibe of what it was, you know, that was there. But no, that's Caleb. That's Caleb singing. And we had great extras that night in New Brunswick. We had some good folks who came out, and I mean, it was a long day, and pulled that off. But the music that's playing at the beginning has a tie to Luke when they first walk in.
Yeah, that's my brother's band, previous band. He's in a new band now, but he's that was fun to do. The name of the club, The Shed, was the name of a club that he used to perform at all the time. It was an all ages venue here. So we wanted to kind of homage that and then threw him in there at the beginning when Em walks in. That's him playing in the background, one of his older songs.
All right, Luke.
That was fun.
Normally we'd say no free lunches, no free rides. Please plug your brother's band name.
Yeah.
So long forgotten. Yes.
There you go. Thank you. You were skipping around it. I was like, tell the folks so we can.
No, thank you.
Maybe link to them in paperstreetpodcast.com if they have a website or a SoundCloud or whatever the young kids do.
Yeah, but find them on Spotify. They're not together anymore. Although they get together every like 5 years to do another show. So yeah, they're all close.
Yeah, I made a Spotify playlist of all the needle drops in the show, and it kind of goes in order. It wasn't going to be public, but then somebody found it and already has posted about it and talked about it. So it's out there, and that song's on there. You know, and then our ending song in this episode's Alkaline Trio. So important. It's so amazing to me that we got. But we'll get to that.
You mentioned last week that you had a playlist you weren't going to publicize yet, and I was going to try to sell you at the end of this one to just go ahead and do like the Bear and other shows do as each episode goes. Like they drop. I know that's a time-consuming thing, but for the folks who do like the to follow the music along, you could also do a new one where you just do each episode one that's public.
There's like an Apple TV thing now where you can be watching a show and it'll tell you the song and you can go listen to the song on Apple, something like that. It's a really cool feature. Yeah,
that's cool.
I want to say that's rad, but it's still like adding advertisements into shows, which bothers me. Like Amazon's popping up stuff now too.
I know.
mixed feelings about that. But yeah, as Rhodey teased about in his stage show to him prior episode, he proceeds to slice a big old gash down his chest as he's performing, and then reach in and futz around with his innards, which is nice and grody. And
Very
he heals
Marilyn
back.
Manson of him.
Yeah, right. He heals back rather immediately, which again, we're seeing how quickly these guys can revive. So Dana has entered the building and spots her sister. Romy is confronted by Big Bad Andrew, but Rhodey quickly pauses his show. Again, Rhodey being the coolest ever. Stops the show, calls it out to the crowd. The crowd actually pulls Andrew away from her. And at this point, Brother Adam charges at Em when Dana pursues Adam, who she tases. And while cuffing, finds a bag of pills just falling out in front of him there. Andrew says she's going to regret this and tells Adam he is screwed. I'm sorry, Dana tells Adam he's screwed. Third felony. And then she perp walks him out, which is fun.
I like the line that Noelle set up there of like, I guess you're most likely to die in prison.
Yeah.
You know, which is really great. A really great setup. She also has a great setup with the squid pro quo that comes back in later in the investigation. It's just, really, really great stuff there from Noelle. And yeah, no, that was a fun sequence. I remember thinking, if someone's like, when you go to shows like that and you're in like a mosh pit or you're in any kind of like, like, it's funny, they keep saying punk show. It's not a punk show that he's at, but whatever, it's fine. But when you're at a show like that, if somebody were to say, like, if you saw a girl that was in distress or in a bad situation, like, hey, they're messing with that girl, like the biggest dudes, it's your responsibility to go over and protect her. And it would happen. So I'm like, no, like, well, why would, we talked about this in the room. I'm like, no, I'm telling you, if the lead singer was like, hey, they're messing with that girl, all the dudes would come over like, no, they're not. Right. And that, because there's like a support, even in a mosh pit where you're hurting, you're getting hurt, you're bumping into each other, but it's out of love. There's a thing there. There's a camaraderie to that. And I thought, I was like, this would be fun to kind of show and play with. So that was a fun little thing to do and kind of like, let people know what these types of folks are like. I don't know, at least for me, I was like, this is how they are. They're actually very sweet, within these crazy moments. Yeah. And then Dana coming in and not cop outfit, which was fun, for the first time. And I love Rhodey's that makeup application that Costanzi's team and all them did was so gnarly. It looks so perfect. I mean, good. It is. You can't see it at all, and that's a whole chess piece that they molded. And even there's like behind the scenes photos and stuff, and you'll see, and like you still can't tell, like what's there. Like it's so great. And then when we were there, and he was there, and it's like, oh, he realized he could stick his hand in, and that it did that. That was not the plan. Nice. And then we're like, oh my god, we got to get this. And like Amanda and I were talking and we're like, just fucking gnarly this up, whatever, and really get into, the guar of it, those old stories you would hear of like Ozzy Osbourne biting the head off a bat and shit, and all that stuff. But this is what these shows were supposed to be. And it's fun because November, Dismember, this is another one of those things that's like in the comic, but like not in the comic, because like Rhodey was not this Rhodey and he's a different character. We're kind of combining some things. And it was really fun to kind of see what this kind of becomes and how this kind of all works and to play with that. But yeah, that's a really fun sequence.
Also, I have to shout out so many great characters in this episode. And one of the reasons I love this episode is because we just introduced so many different people, and that's another opportunity for me to gush about our cast. You've got, the Czech brothers are Joe Delfin and Matt Willis, who are fantastic together. They just great chemistry. I love both of them so much. They're
both giants. They're so tall.
Oh my God.
They're both such big dudes.
There's a picture of Romy, who is also very small, next to them, and it looks insane. She looks like a Smurf compared to these massive human beings. And yeah, they're just wonderful. Shauna McDonald, who played the governor, who's an incredible character actor and so many good stuff. She was in Guillermo del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities, a bunch of great stuff. Derek McGrath, who plays Bob Didman, is amazing. Another amazing character actor who's been in tons of stuff. Going back to, he was in a Hal Ashby film, which is amazing. So yeah, just so many, and then you've got a moment with, we kind of have our first really, really big moment with Paige Evans, who plays Dr. Carla. I love that scene where she comes in and is like, kind of disparaging Arlene, and Ibrahim, stands up for her, says she has a name. I love that scene. Lenore has a great scene. She had a great scene in too, but it's just so many. Yeah, and then Brent, I love the scene. I'm kind of going all over the place, but the scene where he picks that picture up and is like, you see a picture of my new girlfriend? Oh no, it's just a cat, which was an improv moment that we had to keep because it was so wonderful.
Yeah. It was adorable. Yeah. So Brent's a comedian in Toronto, or Mark Little, played by Mark Little, is a comedian in Toronto. We kind of brought in for that. We found little spots. Lenore Zan is the voice of Rogue, in the X-Men animated series. So we're finding these little opportunities. Joe Delphin, who played Adam Check, I saw him in Thanksgiving, Either Roth's Thanksgiving, and he was the scene stealer. He's my favorite character in that. We brought him in. Matt Willis is from the Chucky series. We saw him there. Like, there's just, you see these little moments and you see these characters that kind of stand out, and we're like, how do we work them in? But yeah, the Chuck brothers, when they're all together, especially when you see CM Punk with those three together, are just a really, really cool trio and a lot of fun. And we kind of fell in love with the Czech brothers as we were making all this.
Yeah. Oh, and I don't want to. Big one was Wendy Lyon, the Dorothy Czech, who is most famous for being Vicky Carpenter in Hello, Mary Lou, Prom Night 2.
Yeah,
one of my favorites.
Fun fact about me. It took me till about here in the episode to realize they were not Czechoslovakian. I was like, why don't they have accents?
The Czech brothers, that's hilarious.
That's their name.
That's so funny. They're just eating kolaches all the time. Yeah.
Rhodey and Em, they had escaped out. They find their way out onto a bridge. This is a metal arch bridge, not the bridge of Em's past. But they're standing out in the middle of the road, and Em decides to plant one on them before saying, we're standing in the middle of the road. We will cut back to them shortly there, but Dana has Adam Check in an interrogation room. He says things like, my brother won't stand for this, and she responds, well, yeah, I'm counting on it. She actually requests that he calls her brother. No, not Andrew, but Anthony, the aforementioned Anthony, the big brother and brains of the operation, is Dana's words. She wants to make a deal, call a truce of sorts with the whole Check family. And now we do hear the voice of Anthony / Tony Check, i.e. Phil CM Punk Brooks and Squid Pro Quo. But Dana, I don't want to say overplays her hand, but out loud accuses the Czechs of killing him, which kind of throws Adam for a loop because, wait, what are you talking about? Tony is hesitant, but he does take the deal that they will call off anybody bothering them, and Dana will not pursue charges against Adam, among other things. But we are back in the lab with Ibrahim. He notices one of the samples labeled Moore Creek water appears to have grown / mutated and even broken its vial. We will learn more about that story shortly. But at Dana's home, she's putting Cooper to bed again when she receives a text from him, finally ensuring her that she's safe. Back at Em and Rhodey, who are now sitting on that same bridge as earlier, she is still piecing together, what happened. And Rhodey, again, says another kind of poignant line to her. Just because you broke a lot does not mean you are broken. And Em with an equally poignant response of, well, I had to die to feel alive. At this point, Rhodey kind of suggests, you've had this happening your whole life. And he asks her to jump. I must ask, was Noelle or was anybody, when this might have been breaking in the writer's room, was there any kind of subtle or overt homage to the Lost Boys train bridge sequence here, or am I just connecting dots?
I mean, at the very least, subconsciously, certainly, for... one of my favorite movies. So
yeah, no, that actually, Matt Ryan Tobin has my favorite poster of that. It's like all them hanging upside down from the bridge. It's so rad. No, this is a moment from the comic and what was there. So it was one of those kind of things where they jump that we knew we were going to have. But it's about Rhodey's helping her break out of her skin, and that's really what the essence of this is there. And just, hey, like, you're free. Do you realize you're free? And I had to rewrite that scene for a number of reasons, timing and things that were happening and what was there. And I'm very proud of how that came out, and the idea of she associates herself, again, this is about her being seen, and feeling like she's, again, that agency that's coming back where I'm broken. Like, that's what I've been. She's associated herself with being broken in her life. And he's like, just because you broke doesn't mean you're broken. And I think it's just a really, again, it's Rhodey like helping her recontextualize like how she views herself, which is really, really great. And then I had to die to feel alive. I mean, that's a line that, I remember saying to Luke, like, before we ever had a writer's room, before anything happened, it's literally in our Bible of like, this is part of M's journey. And that's something that was not in the comic. It was just a thing that we wanted to kind of, because we added the OI, we added the brittle bone disease, and that kind of stuff. We added the drug addiction. We added these things to her to kind of create this recluse, this bubble of a human in so many aspects that then finally can be free. And what does that feel like? You know, to where her bones will still break easy, but then now they heal, and what's there. And it just kind of allows for just a much more interesting journey of a character. And then for Rhodey to be like, yeah, hey, why don't you jump right now, break your bones, and we're going to feel amazing, you know, in this moment. And that's a very freeing thing for her to explore. And very proud of that scene. I think it's really beautiful. I think the music is really great. I think it just kind of comes together very, very nicely.
Yeah, I think the music has a bit of a retro tinge to it too, and I wonder if that's why I sort of associated Lost Boys, but there's a chance Tim himself was sort of subtly homaging it too at the time. But so he jumps. Em says, screw it, jumps too. On her way down, we are treated, the audience is, to some of the same imagery she had talked about and had drawn. She realizes just as she splashes into the river that one person she did see on her bridge that night was none other than Blaine Abel.
And jumping backwards, I know it was needed for the sequence, but jumping backwards off a bridge is a wild way to jump off a bridge. I was like, what are you doing?
Yeah. If you're going to do it, might as well do it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it says live a little. Right. So, you know, that's what we're doing. But yeah, it was fun because like those images, when you look at her journal, you know, in 2 and earlier in 3, what was fun was that those feel very Lovecraftian to me. You know, it kind of feels almost cosmic horror or something. And then to realize that like, no, this image of these like tentacles and this orb, that's just the moon in her hair, you know, that like you think it's something, which is an interesting kind of analogy to like, you know, what's going on in the world of like what's scary and what's there. And there might be a simpler answer to some of these things and what's there, but then, you know, triggers this next realization of like the flashlight of, you know, because she's seeing, you know, this is what's happening. She's following the moon, her hair, that's triggering the flash of the flashlight and her hair blowing in front of that and Blaine being there on the bridge. And like, that's connecting these dots. And that's where that image is now coming from. And then you get the first big clue as to what has happened to Em. And that while she was on the bridge, the new memory that comes in, Blaine was there that night. And considering what we know about Blaine, that's pretty bad and not ideal. Yeah.
I do want to do an impression of me watching that by myself. Oh, it was kind of like that. By myself. Oh, nobody was around.
We'll take it.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah. And I will say too, like we're juggling a lot of things here, like because there's central questions, right, in the series that you're trying to kind of serve, right? And it's, you know, what caused Revival Day, right? What's happening here and what's there, and then that's part of what Ibrahim's trying to discover, right? So he's from this like scientific perspective trying to understand the origins of what's there, and his study of water. And there's a big clue there of like, oh, wait a second, here of these samples that I found, one Moore Creek seems to be prominent. There's something about that. So that's telling us something in the water might have some ties to what he's studying, what's going on, right? So we're gonna clock that. While at the same time, like who killed Em? What happened to Em is, you know, kind of our A question. And through that, again, you're getting that first big clue of like, we know she was on the bridge. We know she's seen these images. And then these images from that journal, when she's talking with Rhodey and kind of going through those are going to be those pivotal clues to try to understand, okay, where are these coming from? And if you know, those are the pieces of the puzzle that we have yet to cement, that are right now, they're black. They're all just a color and we don't know what that means. And they're going to have to come through over the course of the season to help us try to figure out what really happened on Revival with them on that night.
Definitely. You guys mentioned how scene transitions being important, how you set up a thing, you jump to a thing. The audience sees Blaine in her flashback, and we now cut to Blaine, who Wayne is releasing from custody at the station. Blaine with a few pointed lines to Wayne, including like, hey, we want the same thing. You know, you just don't know yet. Blaine now walks out to a group of men. Now, we have teased that he has a radio show, so he's not just a tow truck driver in a junkyard, but he has a voice, he has an audience. So that's been set up. And this group of men, one of whom looks very hesitant, we'll learn more about, I'm certain, in the future, but the rest are gung-ho as Blaine asks them to close the episode, who's ready for a holy war?
Yeah. With the Alkaline Trio song, my favorite songs, that's like playing the whole piano piece that comes up, and it's so rad. I hate when like the commercial starts at the end of this and they cut out the song, but on Peacock you can hear the whole song because it's so good. My brother has an Alkaline Trio tattoo, and we've just been fans of that band for forever, so it's really, really cool and fits perfect. But yeah, I mean, like we've alluded to, there's references of like Blaine's getting people, like people are listening to this guy, and there's a lot of subtle hints to this that like he's starting to amass a following. And I think him stopping Arlene, I mean, keep in mind, this is a town that is panicked. There is a quote unquote zombie killer on the loose that you can't kill, that you're shooting, you can cut her head off and it doesn't matter. And, it's killing nurses and taking babies, and cops are dead and like all this stuff. So small town Wisconsin, like that's not going over well. And then Blaine, of all people, to be able to stop her is really... Yeah, I mean, it's gonna, I feel like that's what would happen. Like, and so much of this was like, well, what would really happen here? Like, if this crazy thing happened, what do we think would start to build up? And the idea of Blaine kind of forming a little militia, a sect, whatever you want to call it, a religious group of followers, whatever that ends up being, seems to track, because it happens now. It happens already, in throughout the States in particular. So there's something to it. And this guy dangerous, and now he's powerful, and he was there the night and was murdered, and that's not good, right? Maybe.
Hey, the people want a daddy.
That's right.
They want a daddy.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine there's like, a lot of those guys, they've been playing a lot of video games for a long time, and they've been watching a lot of zombie movies, and they are ready. They have their guns ready in America, and they want to shoot some zombies. So they just need an excuse. They just need someone to tell them to do that, to tell them, hey, yeah, they are bad. Let's go get them. And so one of the most obvious, I think, tracks that you could take in this situation.
There's kind of broader criticism about zombie shows in general as being power fantasies for the gun-toting of us. Yeah. Because, a lot of it is, the perfect world, I get to shoot whoever I want who gives me any slight indiscretion. So,
I've had conversations with people where they're like, okay, here's where I would keep, these are the weapons I would keep in case of a zombie apocalypse. And here's where I would keep them. So I'm always ready. And here, I've heard people say this.
Oh, I know. Yep. We love our country unconditionally, but if it ever turns on us, we have these guns in the safe.
That's right.
Never mind that they'll be drone struck instantly. But okay. Anyway. So we'll pivot to there's a handful of fan comments and some stuff we can talk about with you guys before we let you go.
Yeah, so we went looking around and we found, so we talked plenty about how this airs in the United States on both Sci-Fi and USA and streams on Peacock. It's on YouTube. Canada, they watch it on Crave, but lots of people on the internets are asking, when's it coming to the UK? How can we watch it in the UK? I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, so genuinely, we need people to be like tweeting and messaging Sky in the UK who has watched the show, do like it, but have not bought it yet. And I mean, we're trying to get that worked out. So that's where we just need Sky to come through. So if people in the UK can go and message Sky, tweet at Sky, say they want to see it, that could be massive. And that would be both UK and Germany. If they did that, it would be huge. And we would love to work something out there. It's also on Binge in Australia, which is their big streamer out there. Mm-hmm. But our international sales agent is positioning it in other places. So hopefully that can happen soon. But it's not there yet.
Well, they want it.
I want them to have it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Before specific comments, lots of people also excited just to see Melanie. She amassed such a loyal following. I personally have not ever seen Winona Earp, but I know it has a following, and those fans have been super supportive so far of just her leading this series, and they've gone kind of above and beyond as far as just tweeting, blue skying, skeeting, whatever you want to call it, just being active on social media in support of Melanie and the show because of Winona Earp.
Yeah, we're so gracious to have the Earpers are such a beautiful. It's just a beautiful, kind community, that really got behind that show. And we're so proud to have a lot of them watching Revival right now, and it means the world to us. And I got to watch someone at Earp when we were, hiring Melanie and what's there, and she's so funny and just has so much that she's doing and so crazy. And there are definite parallels. There's a couple times where in future episodes, Mel might, there's a couple of lines that we're doing that are little homages back to that. And, just kind of a little wink and nod to the wonderful Earp fans out there. So, very, very special, and love how they're embracing Romy now too. And they're kind of seeing, the sister dynamic and what's there. Like, that's very exciting. And it's wonderful to be a small part of what that fan base has been.
Yeah, it's a beautiful community, and we are infinitely grateful for them, the way they've embraced this. So thank you to all the Earpers for sure.
Yes, and I started watching Winona Earp, so I'm doing it backwards, but thank you.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Old Pam on Facebook just had a comment. She just wanted to say, great show, shades of Fargo, ... She just wanted to let you know.
That's great.
Fargo
I'll take it.
Yeah, Fargo is always, I mean, it was in our Bible, right? Like we wanted to do very much a Fargo type thing. I mean, it's got this small town with quirky characters, winter Midwestern. So that helps as well, the setting. But, it's landlocked. It's this idea that weirder things happen when everyone is sort of just stuck together in this world and, strange things are happening. Oh my God, the cat just
I saw your
crap out of me. So... threw my entire train of thought out the window. So
Fargo, good. Fargo,
good.
Love Fargo.
All right.
Yeah, so no, huge fans of that show. So we actually read the Fargo Bible before, just seeing like how they approached it and how Noah was making that show. In particular, the show. I mean, the movie also obviously inspires all this too. But yeah, that was probably the biggest comp. Because a lot of each season of Fargo is like a central mystery that's trying to be solved, whether it's like dissecting from inside out and what's there, and I think we learned have no qualms with saying that, really, I was showing Luke and I were hanging out this week, and when he came up for we had a dinner with our writers, and I was showing him, like, I went through when we were writing the pilot, and I watched the pilots of like every show you could possibly think of, and I dissected like, okay, when did these things happen? Like big moments, twists, and understanding, and what do you know about the characters, like at different act breaks, and I did each season of Fargo, the first episodes of each season of Fargo, X-Files, Lost, Sharp Objects, Mayor of Easttown, so many, True Detective Night Country, like all of these, and just to kind of see and feel and understand what it was. And the one that we kept going back to the most was Fargo, and how those mysteries unraveled. But what I like is that they don't, especially in Fargo, they don't always stay with like the same central mystery. Like there's things that like, oh, I just think I got part of that solved, and I know what this means. And as you get into future episodes with us, it's you'll see that like there'll be moments where you're like, wait, did we just solve that? Like that feels like we just kind of, but then you're going to realize there's more, and there's so many layers, and where there's this nesting doll of secrets that was really fun to deconstruct. So it's not just like, what caused revival? Like, what's Revival Day? Like, that's it, or what happened to Em? Like, it's, or who murdered Em? If that's, it's so much more than that. And that was a really fun thing for us to do and kind of study from the greats and try to learn the best we can of like how to deconstruct this and the ways that you can kind of make this happen. And Fargo, Mayor of Easttown does a great job of that as well from like a murder mystery perspective. But I mean, we're talking with Judith Clancy, who was our costume designer. I remember I kept saying, I was like, I want the Fargo coats. Which was amazing on set. I mean, everybody, if you notice, everybody has like a big coat, some like big noticeable jacket coat thing. But then once you get into post, you have to ADR so much shit because coats make so much noise all over the place, and it wasn't cold the whole time we were shooting. It got cold when we got later into the season, but the first part we were shooting in the summer. So people are walking around in huge coats and we're spraying fake snow around, and they're like, Aaron, damn it, getting pissed off at me for making them sweat. So, but that started, I blame Fargo because Fargo had great coats. So that's what we were doing.
Jim N commented on one of our posts here, says he's enjoying the show more than he thought he would, a different take on zombies, which is refreshing, as well as a comment from Nick Checking. It's very Canadian sci-fi and Winona Earp comparisons abound. However, the twist at the end, he's talking about the pilot episode in this case, the twist at the end did surprise me. There was definitely something up with her, but the multiple things happening at the ending, it slipped my mind until the actual reveal. It provoked a great reaction from Dana, getting hit with a double whammy of grief in really different ways, and Scrofano, as maybe the strongest actor on the show, was able to pull it off. So thank you, Nick, for
thanks, Nick.
buying into it.
Yeah, those are nice comments.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, you have to, it is a lot. I mean, I remember in the barn when Em gets hit with the scythe and hearing Mel scream was like, oof. I mean, it gives me chills. There's another, without giving it away, there's another pretty big scream that Mel gives in the season, and they both are just gut wrenching. Like you just hear that and feel that it was there. It's a really visceral thing, and then to go from that to the shock of like, you're not dead, you're alive is really fun. But that's Mel can pull that off, and that's one reason that actually works.
Lacey, Facebook said, I was so excited when I heard senses fail in this episode. This is about episode 2. I wrote it down, but I didn't know what she was talking about.
Oh, that's the song "Buried Alive" when Rhodey and I read an article too. They were talking about how like it's like, oh, my emo self is like so excited and what's there, because there's Census Fail in episode 2, we got Alkaline Trio in episode 3. So there's definitely, I mean, that was a big part of my life, was like the early aughts emo boom. I was extremely involved in and went to all the shows and all that, and so there's a little bit of that's there, and I don't think we have a ton more going forward that's going to bum out some of the emo fans, but there's still the music we have. I'm extremely proud of what's there.
We're trying to craft some personas. We've got with Dana and the pilot with the Cocktail Twins, that was intentional. We wanted to do something we felt like, okay, this is something that's important to Dana, her era of music that she's really attached to, and then Em is 20 years old in 2008. You know what I mean? So like, this is her world. This is her music. So we kind of, there's moments like that early on that we're sort of planting that. It's not just a simple needle drop. We're trying to color the world and the characters.
Cool. This was my favorite of all time comments. Tate said, I literally provide hearses to Wausau area funeral homes for the last 15 years. We have 5 hearses we rent out to about a dozen area funeral homes, and I generally don't get freaked out, but I'm 5 minutes into the show and it's my worst nightmare.
Wow, nice.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, there's not a lot, like the small town, like when we did the Man on Fire in episode 1, and we practically lit that dude on fire, right? I mean, that's like real. But we had to have a couple ambulances and stuff that were there that are stationed the whole time. But there's only so many ambulances in St. John, New Brunswick, and there's only so many medical personnel. And then we were talking with Sonia, who was our production manager, and she's like, yeah, I really hope something bad doesn't happen right now because everybody's here, at the thing. So yeah, there's like little things like that you don't think about, that you're taking up these like resources, and I remember literally like talking with some of the medical personnel that were there that night. I was like, so, but you have like a thing, if you hear something, you're going to go. Like, yes. Okay. I'm like, just making sure, like, we'll hold the fire until you're back from like an actual house fire or something. Like, I just want to make sure the town is okay. So yeah, there's like weird things that you don't think about. And that poor dude, that poor Hearst dude. I almost said horse dude. Hearst dude. Yeah.
That's probably a horse dude too. Come on.
Could be.
Kylie B, quote, and speaking of Wausau, if this gets picked up for another season, please film here in Wausau. There are so many locations that would work well. Downtown still has creepy tunnels under some of the older buildings, plenty of barns, open fields, etc.
Tunnels.
Yeah, we'll reference the tunnels later, but I won't say how or why.
Nice, okay.
So you knew about the tunnels?
Yeah.
Yes.
What?
Yeah,
bootlegging through there was a thing, and especially through Illinois and stuff too. Like there's a lot of bootlegging tunnels from the Prohibition era of like moving stuff around, and there's more that's there in Wisconsin. So yeah, we don't go into tunnels. I'll just say we don't go into tunnels, but there was we wanted to, and I would not be shocked if that's a thing that would be further explored in a future season.
Yeah, and as far as Wausau goes, we would love to. We're a Canadian show, so probably won't have, but as much as we love Wausau, we'd love to shoot more there. But
yeah, it's not even necessarily this, the Canadian show. It's just a much of like, there's not enough money in the States to make TV shows.
Yeah.
Period. So if the states want to have a federal tax credit that's on top of the state tax credits, then that actually becomes viable. But in Canada, you get tax credits and you get rebates in a territory you shoot in. So like New Brunswick, we had specific money that came from New Brunswick. Then on top of that, you also have a federal rebate that's through the country in the province of Ontario. That's giving you money. So like you get to add all those things up, and it makes the show viable. If otherwise, the show would not have been greenlit if we had to shoot in the States, because we couldn't come up with enough money to shoot it elsewhere. So, but if the States cobbles together enough money, then anything's possible. But the states aren't going to do that.
Yeah.
So
and Wisconsin being one of those that unfortunately lost their tax incentive for filming. So I know other shows. We're doing a movie right now that takes place in Wisconsin, but is not being shot in Wisconsin. So write your local representatives, your state representatives, tell them how important tax incentives are to tourism and all those other things. They bring a lot of money. Films and TV shows bring a lot of money into states and towns and things like that. One of the reasons they have them in Canada. So I know a lot of people that would love to shoot in Wisconsin. It's a wonderful state with a lot of beautiful areas. So
beautiful tunnels, beautiful underground tunnels.
And, yep, those underground tunnels. Can't beat them, really.
Do what Luke suggested, Kylie. In the meantime, please enjoy the beautiful B-roll and drone footage you have of your town. All those nice establishing shots are Wausau.
Exactly.
Yeah, we at least have that. We at least were able to do that, to give something. So
I'm sorry that TV and movies are pretend, but it is what it is. But yes, gentlemen, thank you for the time. As always, we want to say thanks to Noelle Carbone on this episode too. A lot of wonderful lines, a lot of wonderful moments, and everybody, again, bang up job on episode 3, Reality Check. We will let you go, as I know you were still in post on a few of the final moments for the final episodes of the season. But yeah, we will be back to talk episode 4 with you here soon.
Can't wait.
All right.
Yay.
Thank you.
It's a crazy one.
Thanks again to the gents for the discussion on episode 3. We are now going to transition over to a chat with one of the featured players of said episode. He is a musician, a writer, an actor who you may have seen in films including Dream Scenario and shows including Glamorous and Chucky. And currently he's portraying rock star Rhodey right here on Revival. He is Kaleb Horn. Kaleb, thank you so much for joining us on the program here.
Yay!
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you so much for having me. Very grateful to be here.
You're our second celebrity interview.
Oh my God.
Yeah, this is big.
I listened to the Romy episode. It was so great. Yeah.
Oh, good.
We'll have similar questions about your emo phases too. But no, we talked so much about you with the gents prior, and while all of the Cypress family, I would argue, kind of has moments to shine in episode 103, they have said on this and elsewhere that this is the Rhodey episode as far as they're concerned. So we are again glad to have you on this particular one, considering how featured Rhodey was in this one.
Oh, wow. It's making me blush.
Yeah.
So getting into it, as far as the Rhodey character goes, how much did your experience as an actual musician kind of help you in getting the role and also just doing the role?
It helped a lot. Being a musician, I have a lot of musician friends. I went to theater school and high school, but my friends were always the musicians in the music program. And there's just musicians kind of carry themselves in a way that other people don't. There's just a general laid back and sort of coolness. And so I felt because a lot of my friends are like that, and being a musician myself, it was just easier to, I guess, be more believable as a musician. But obviously not to say there are so many different artists and musicians who, behave in all kinds of ways. So not to limit it down. That's just my narrow perspective on it. My perspective, but yeah.
Did you channel a musician while you were doing that, or were you just channeling yourself because you're a good actor?
Well, there were certainly some elements, as far as developing the look, especially for the concert. I really wanted to go kind of classic punk, Iggy Pop, Billy Idol, with the eyeliner and stuff. And working with Trina, who was head of makeup, she did an incredible job. She was let's kind of glam it up. We'll go with the glitter eyeshadow. And then I kind of had an idea to have the hair slicked back on the sides. And then Dan Campbell, who did hair, he took my idea and ran with it and looked better than anybody could have imagined. So yeah, I definitely took some inspiration from glam rock, early punk stuff. As far as look, as far as performance, I mean, there's like Ozzy Osbourne, and Alice Cooper.
The Dark Lords. Yeah.
The Dark Lords. Yeah,
exactly.
Okay. Yeah. My inner Dark Lord. And that was basically it. Yeah.
Speaking of that, then we have to ask you as well, did you go through an emo phase growing up, or are you doing it now? Or
I was a little late to the emo phase, to be honest. I was a pretty happy-go-lucky kid, and then when university hit, I was like, man, I am sad. I need to listen to some stuff to sort out these feelings. So yeah, it wasn't really until third year university that I really started listening to more emo stuff, sad stuff, just finding an outlet for all these feelings. But yeah, definitely went through an emo phase, and I would say I'm still there. It's good to feel what you're feeling. You don't want to ignore those things. It's best to, instead of walk away from it or close the door on it, you want to invite it in. All feelings are friends, but you don't want them to stay, but they won't leave unless they come in for a cup of tea or something.
That's right.
I like that. Well, before we move off of that side of things, I know they cited Guar, and you guys said Alice Cooper, Ozzy. Those are all kind of the touchstones, along with Kiss, of the big kind of stage show stuff, whether it's punk or rock and roll. But we want to talk about, we had mentioned it earlier in the show, the gnarly chest cut and the goo that was gooing as you were wearing it. Was that your first time like wearing a major prosthetic or chest piece? Like, have you ever had that level of makeup in any kind of thing you've done before?
No, that was definitely the most major thing I'd ever done. I had to like go and like do like a body cast. I'd never done that. You just like stand still for like a couple hours while a couple dudes just like put paste on you and you're listening to music and just shooting the shit.
Sounds very emo of you.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'd never done anything like that, and like it was tripping me out. So Patrick Baxter, who was the head of prosthetics, incredible, like such a talented artist. It was tripping me out because I'm like, this looks like my real chest, and I kept touching it, but it like didn't. It felt like I was wearing something, but I was like, this is. I did an Instagram post, and like there was a point where I'm like, this is a mold of my real nipples. Because like I kept telling everybody, I was like, these aren't my real nipples. This whole chest front is a fake piece. Yeah, really tripping me out.
And attaboy to the art team and all for how good it looked. We complimented how good it looked in the earlier in the episode. And again, I think the boys mentioned that you would it was your idea to kind of, once you realized your hand could go in there, it was all the better that you made it even gnarlier.
Was what? Oh, I don't remember that being my idea. To me, I thought that was Amanda, the director. She had told me to put my hand in there. That's what I heard.
That might have been on the day, who knows? But I think they gave you credit for it. So
yeah. Either
way, it worked. It made it all the more gory. So.
Yeah, I remember trying so hard not to throw up in my mouth when she told me to do that. I was like, this is the gnarliest thing I've ever had to do. Yeah.
Did you get to keep it?
It's hanging on my wall.
Oh, good.
No, I'm kidding. No, I didn't.
No. Well, who ended up with your nipples? You got to keep an eye on those.
Yeah, they're probably on eBay somewhere.
Yeah, you gotta watch out.
I hope they get a lot of money for it, at least. No, I did not keep my prosthetic.
All right. This question has several parts. Have you ever cut open an avocado in real life, and how do you personally do it in real life? And has it changed since playing a character who died by avocado?
Okay, so I'm quite proud of this. I've always taken the time to cut my avocados very carefully because my father put the fear of God in me when I was young about using knives and like paring fruit. Is that the right word? I don't know. Paring knife. Anyway. So what I do now is I'll cut the avocado in half, like very carefully, and then I'll put it down on the table, and then I'll just take the knife and like chop, like judo chop at the pit. So everything is safe, and then I just go to my compost and I go, and then the pit falls into the garbage, and I leave it there.
So no hands ever coming into contact. That's smart.
That's how I cut an avocado.
It wouldn't be how Kaleb dies on Revival Days was saying. He's ultra careful with the knife.
Right.
This might be a more heroic death than Rhodey's.
Careful. Yeah, Kaleb would probably go to the doctor. Yeah. He's not that punk. I'm not that punk.
Well, it's funny. So speaking of that, you mentioned an emo phase came much later in life. Who would you say might be, like, what is your music influences and inspirations? Like, what really gave you that bug as a youth?
Honestly, I mean, a lot of like, I feel like this is kind of unconventional, but like really early Bob Dylan, like from, what the heck is it called? Not Walt Whitman, the Whitaker demos, maybe. I feel like I'm totally missing this, but a lot of his earlier stuff where like he was like still like 18, 19. And some of his songs are like really sad, really heavy. There's one in particular, of course, I can't think of the name right now. But it was like about like alcoholism and all that. It was quite heavy. I remember being like, "Whoa, this is Bob Dylan!" Like, I didn't realize he wrote stuff like this. But so there was stuff like that. Like, I listened to the Strokes. Love the Strokes. Still one of my favorite bands to this day. Gosh, that's sort of what's like all I can seem to think of in this moment. Yeah.
No, you're good. Romy mentioned John Mayer, so there's no judgment here.
Oh God!
Oh, no.
Interesting.
I'm kidding.
Oh no!
No, but like it,
Romy, no.
Stage. No.
Not John
kidding.
Mayer.
Hey, when you're young, certain things hit you the right way, but no, we get it.
Yeah. No, that's true.
He's not adorable. Okay, he's John Mayer.
Actually, okay. In Romy's defense, I did go through a John Mayer phase also. Yes.
We all did.
Who's to judge?
No one. I'm not.
Like he's kind of. I don't really like him as a person. Sure, he's a good guitar player, but I just don't like who he is as a person.
Sure.
Personally.
Oh, that list of rock stars, you could just, it's two separate lists. It's like them as a person and them and their music.
Yes,
Almost
yeah.
With rock and roll guys, there's so many guys like that.
Yeah,
The
unfortunately.
Bad Boys.
However, Rhodey, the way they're writing him for Revival the TV show, is a good guy.
Yeah.
A little different than the comic counterpart. He is we were talking about how much empathy you were showing Romy's character all through the episode. You know, everything with her, you would hold back. You know, Rhodey would say, "No, that's cool." Even when he tried to make fun about the the beach being one of her kind of dreams, he's like, "I'm just kidding. It's fine. It's whatever you want. If you've never been there, of course." So yeah, there was so much of that with Rhodey in this one. So
well, I was so relieved because I found out that I booked the part, and I, of course, like I got the comics right away. I was like, I want to learn more about, because I hadn't read the comics beforehand, and I wanted to know as much as I could about this character. And as I started reading more, I was like, oh my god, like Rhodey in the comics, like he's a dirtbag. Like he is not a nice guy. He's not a good guy. But I was like, how are they going to get this? Like, because the scene that I auditioned with, I was like he demonstrates a lot of compassion and like is a good listener. And I was like, how are they going to do this? And then finally like met Luke and Aaron, and they told me like their idea for Rhodey. I was like, oh, thank goodness. Like, wow. I was like, I would love to, play like it's always a treat to pretend to be a terrible person. But what a relief. I was so relieved to find out that I actually get to pretend to be a really nice person.
there you go.
That's always much better. Do you have a favorite moment in episode 3, a Rhodey moment or a line or anything?
Yeah. I think my favorite moment, as far as like Rhodey goes, would be when Em is waking up in Rhodey's apartment, and they have that moment where she's wondering like maybe she did jump. And Rhodey can kind of sense that like she's feeling a lot of shame around that, like if that is how she died. And I just think like what he says, like lots of people jump for lots of reasons, doesn't make you weak or selfish or a bad person. I can't remember exactly. I think it's something like that. I just think that's such a beautiful thing to say to somebody who is feeling shame, because shame is such a killer. It's such a heavy thing to carry, and somebody who's struggling with self-harm and addiction, like they're already feeling all kinds of shame. And so to just to offer Em this like, this olive branch of like, hey, you don't have to feel shitty about this. I just think that's such a beautiful reminder, whether it seems like she takes it to heart, but just to offer that, there's no need to feel shame about this. I just think it's such a beautiful moment. Yeah, I'd say that's my favorite part.
No, that's a good one for sure.
Luke and Aaron said you were a sweetie pie, and they were right. Oh,
no, indeed.
I loved it. These are all good answers.
Because the character does deviate a bit from the comic counterpart, we're obviously very excited to see where the relationship with Em and Rhodey goes and how it's going to play out. So, again, before we wrap up, though, I do want to ask, do you have any plugs for as far as a website or social media you want people to maybe direct to follow you, or is there anywhere they can find more about Kaleb Horn?
Yeah, I guess just Instagram. It's just my name at Kaleb_Horn, Kaleb with a K, because my mom wanted me to be special. And I've got like links to my music and stuff there too. Yeah, that's it.
Cool. We'll be sure to actually tag that in YouTube descriptions and our paperstreetpodcast.com show notes and stuff like that. So yeah, we will send people your way, and you can watch his Instagram with his gnarly chest piece and him goofing around with his innards there. But yeah, we won't keep you. This was a thread and a needle to get you here, but we're so glad we were able to for this episode again, which was very Rhodey heavy. And yes, as advertised, what Liz said, you are as sweet as the boys said. Just a nice guy. You're Rhodey incarnate.
Well, I really appreciate you being so flexible. I really wanted to do this, and so I'm so grateful that we could adjust and shift to make this work. So
no, we're very
thank you
glad
so much for having me.
Make it work. Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time. We will see more of you sooner than later on the next revival or two. So yeah, thank you again, Kaleb.
All right, thank you. Bye.
Bye.
All right. We appreciate Kaleb taking the time there for real. We are so glad to have been able to speak with him. I do want to mention before I forget, there was a few things we passed over in the breakdown with Luke and Aaron. I did want to say I really did like the framing of the interrogation scene with Dana and Adam. It was kind of subtle, but it was a simple setup that you've seen 1,000 times, but they angled it where the mirror was off at an angle. So Dana's in the mirror kind of juxtaposing where they're looking at each other, but it wasn't just an obvious two-shot. I thought that was pretty neat. So bravo to the director and DP for how that was blocked. And he did mention Durant High School as an Easter egg. That's Aaron's and my high school from the suburbs of the outskirts, if you will, of Tampa, Florida. That's him, dropping in what he knows, which is a good tip, man, for writers. I'm telling you, you will spend hours trying to come up with some kind of Harry Potter name that's a pun of a pun. If you don't just first thought, best thought, and then move along, because again, the story is the most important thing, not the super meaning of the names. But there's also a couple additional comments, theories, and such that have come our way since we even started recording episode 3. We'll get into a few of those here.
All right, here we go. Aman says, this MFR ramen makes me root for Blaine, LOL.
He literally did write MFR, by the way. He didn't spell out.
I'd say it if it said
it. I know.
I
will say to this gentleman, okay, buddy, why don't you go shoot some more ivermectin up and do whatever else the podcasters tell you? Because it sounds like he'd be a Blaine devotee, the way he's talking.
Right.
Again, charismatic leaders. I mean, you see it all the time. They drink the flavor aid.
Also, if they have cool hair, it's hard to resist.
Rhodey could be a cult leader.
Jesus, yeah.
He's like Jesus. He's sticking his hand in the little holes. KNYX says, old Arlene reviving like Jack Harkness when he was completely burned and regenerated an arm. That's a nice Doctor Who Torchwood reference there. Goes on to also say, I think the CDC guy knows why they revived on that date. What he doesn't know is why the effects last so long. It seems like it was an experiment that went wrong or right.
Oh.
Interesting.
Okay.
Another one from It's Just Jade via the TV Time app thread. So many heartfelt moments with touching quotes in this episode, like, quote, she's worth loving. I hope you can find a way to do that. And also, quote, just because you broke a lot, it does not mean you're broken. She goes on to say, I loved Dana standing up for Em and Cooper. I love their relationship so much, and she's a badass. Muscle emoji. And then last little tidbit on her comment was, but also the Holy War? Every episode leaves me with more questions and answers. I can't wait to find out more about what's going on next week. So thank you for that comment, Jade.
Same. Maya, also on the TV Time thread, says, I get to say a bad word, says, that fucking eulogy alone deserved to be interrupted like that. Referencing Dittman's eulogy, she even took in her sick mother, even when it was a burden in our marriage, even when it made her unable to take care of my needs like a wife ought to. And Maya continues, are you shitting me? Of course he murdered his mother-in-law too. Nice. And finishes with some speculation about Mr. Abel saying, wait, so Blaine killed M? Why? He kills revivers now, but did he start with the living before that? Anybody he considered unholy? I didn't think about that, actually. That is, that doesn't make...
about Blaine. I mean, we know he's on the bridge, so was he doing dirty deeds, obviously, before Revival Day even?
Do I have to think about this show 24/7? Yeah. I didn't think I had new things to ponder, and now here we are, okay.
Right. Again, we didn't mention this in the comments with the guys, but lots of folks have been comparing the show to Glitch, which is an Australian show. But oftentimes when someone brings that up, someone jumps into these threads and says, no, the comic predates it, as many fans, like to point out. But the comparison's there. And I don't want to, burst the internet's bubble, but sorry, every single thing with the zombie is in some part derivative of George Romero, just as everything with a vampire owes something of a debt to Bram Stoker. And so Glitch, BBC's In the Flesh, the French series Le Revenant, which the US remake was called The Return, actually, developed by Carlton Hughes of Lost fame. They've all played in the sandbox, but like Mike and Tim, and now Aaron and Luke are obviously taking different turns, different directions, and unique spins on this idea, as one does. So please stop asking if this is Glitch. Like Walking Dead was a mega hit for a few seasons, right? And I mean, you didn't hear people turn on and go, this is just Dawn of the Dead. This is just Night of the Living Dead.
Whoa, how did you draw that conclusion?
I know, so it's just funny that anything with a niche kind of small town aspect with anybody returning from the dead, obviously it's going to draw some comparisons. But again, the show has taken many, many different turns already than all of the aforementioned. So
I know that they've discussed how the Rhodey character Has and is going in a different direction than the comic. So I am interested to see where the relationship with him and Em goes.
Yes, very much so. And M's mystery continuing to unfold. And the guys did promise episode 4 is going to be a doozy. And I think it's going to step up a notch here. Again, speaking of those comments, those series of speculations, if you guys have any of those predictions or even just some general questions for the showrunners, I remind you can email those to us at revival@paperstreetpictures.com. We'll read some of them on the show here. We'll read all of them if they're, reasonable. That's the best way to participate if you'd like to. And we'll continue to read some comments we get here and there and off the internet. So I would like to thank again Mr. Aaron B. Koontz, Mr. Luke Boyce, your Revival creators, showrunners, and EPs. Thank you again, Liz, as always, for helping steer this ship. And of course, to Kaleb Horn as well. Revival episode 3 in the books, as is this compendium recap. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We will find you on the next one to discuss episode 4, Run Along Little Lamb. For Aaron, for Luke, for Liz, I'm Sean Talley saying, I too am ready for a holy war. We'll see you back here soon.